Okay, Michel Foucault, he's examining those societies and he's saying, look, like the ancient Greeks, they like homosexuality was very prevalent in their society.
Right. And
he documents this and he finds evidence for it. He's like, it was not uncommon for men to be sleeping with boys.
Or with each other.
Or with each other, right? So, and so he's going to use that piece of evidence to say, here was this reputedly wise people who had this norm.
Right.
Now we have different norms. So there is no real standard. There is no real norm. There is no real nature to sex or to sexuality. Right. It doesn't have a real purpose. The norms surrounding sexual behavior are just determined by those who are in power. Mm-hmm. Right. So he's going to say he'll ultimately attribute our current ideas about sexual propriety to probably Christianity and its dominance in history.
Or science. He took science, the scientific realm, serious, right?
Yeah, you're right.
So like biologists would say, hey, this and this and this, therefore you're a male, this and this and this, therefore you're a homo sapien or whatever the case may be. But to him it would have been like, no, that's just, again, the dominant force being exerted on this particular field.
So that's kind of like the main theme of A History of Sexuality, and that's kind of the attempt that he's trying to make in writing that book, is basically to show that there are no objective standards. Everything is arbitrarily constructed by different forces vying for power.
And so sexuality, also the history of sexuality here, is the kind of expression of those ideas at particular times.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So some of his thoughts in this work have been particularly influential on a more contemporary author named Judith Butler. Judith Butler wrote a book called Gender Trouble.
Yeah.
And she's one of the real pioneers behind the transgender movement and ideology, especially in America.
Oh, wow.
So she is constantly referencing Foucault and his thoughts. And she's right there in that same kind of line of thinking, is that we don't have real access to objective reality. We can't say anything true about the world, about sexuality, about men and women.
Sure.
And so our sexual norms, are the way that we typically think about things, are just the arbitrary constructs and result of different power struggles that have gone on in history, really, that have oppressed women, and then, or even eventually people who don't fit into the gender binary or something like that. So, I mean, Foucault is incredibly influential in a lot of the transgender ideology that we see today in our society. So that's why we got to be cognizant of his thinking.
Yeah.